Alright guys, so we're going to start working on the Peregrine Falcon's feet. And yes, this is a sculpting video. Now you can painstakingly take a lot of time to sculpt in every little micro detail of the feet. You know, bird feet usually have a lot of platelets, a lot of little bumps, a lot of small micro details. And when we're doing a lot of shifts between plates and bumps of the skin on the bottom of say a peregrine falcon's foot or an eagle's foot, we need to make sure we're able to capture those little small details as much as possible so we can make it as realistic as we can. Now it is an absolute beautiful November day out here, and what we're going to do is we're going to find a chicken. Yes, you heard me, I'm going to say a chicken. Not say a dead chicken, but we're going to actually catch a live chicken. And what we're going to do is we're going to use some clay, oven baked clay, to make some impressions of their feet. Now I'm doing a fresh chicken because usually when you get store-bought detached feet, usually they are kind of soft and mushy. We want those fresh feet because they have a little bit more firmness to the skin texture, and it's a lot fresher, and we can get a lot more detail in the kind of impressions that we're going to take. We can use the clay as impressions in the monster clay before we actually go in and do a lot of the detail. So of course it's going to be a little bit of a process here, but I just want to showcase more so how you can make your own impressions using like just random things. And in this situation, I don't think we can get much more random than using actual chicken feet. So let's go ahead and catch a chicken. We'll flip them upside down. We'll go ahead and take some impressions with some Sculpey 3 oven baked clay, and then we'll go ahead and bake those at 275 for about maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll use those to make the actual texture on the bottom of the peregrine falcon's feet right here before we finish up the wings and get into the finalization before the actual mold making process. This project is absolutely massive and has come a long way. So let's go ahead and get this video rocking and rolling, guys, and let's have some fun with some chicken feet. All right, guys, so let's jump into the chicken coop here. Now, this is on my father's little homestead here, and these are his chickens. And we're going to use a little bit of frozen bread to entice one of these lovely models over here to me, so that way we can get some good molds of their feet. Most docile. Come here. Who's the biggest? Now, I'm going to do a partial voiceover throughout this process, so I'll be talking every so often. Come here. Well, now the first one, of course, just jumped right out of my arms. Wouldn't you know it? So I had to go ahead and entice another one here over to me, and they just didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They're like, well, we just walked a little bit too close to this creeper guy and his straw hat. Now, if you're wondering why I'm looking so dapper here in my nice threads, it's because actually Thanksgiving for our family. We got done with our meal, and I told them, I said, I got to go out to the chicken coop and wrangle me up a chicken to make some impressions of the feet. You gotta do what? Yep, we're gonna make some clay impressions of these feet. Now, of course, you gotta soothe your chicken here when you're doing something like this. We don't want her to get too antsy or too distressed here. But we're gonna go ahead and use these clays that I previously molded. I wish I had made them slightly smaller, but that's just the world we live in. Part of the chicken foot. So all you're gonna do is just hold your chicken very gently here, and we're gonna go ahead and make impressions of different angles and sides of the feet. Again, I wish I had made my little clay pieces a little bit smaller than I did, but of course a lot of this is just kind of spur of the moment. I wanted to show that you can do this indeed by yourself. We're gonna roll it over to the other side. She's actually lost a lot of her texture around her. Of course, if you do have a helper or an eagle nearby, then you can get assistance there in holding the chickens. But this is more so just to show, look, if you can do this with a live chicken, you can definitely do it with an inanimate object that is not fighting back or needing to be coddled, right? This is the platelets in the front of the feet there. So taking that impression there. Roll it across. It's always easy when you do a bit of a rolling action. Like that. You use your other hand, hold her with one hand. Just roll it across the top of the feet here. Right, get a little bit of a reposition here. And of course, I know I got that wing kind of tucked up high there, but she's still comfortable. There we go. You kind of got to hold it there. Like I stated before, the cold weather is making the clay harden up a little bit. And I decided to use oven baked clay so they're a lot more long lasting than opposed to, say, maybe a paper clay or an air dry clay that you have to wait for it to dry out. With oven bake, you can bake it pretty quickly and have it ready to go. There we go. Rolling that across some of the toes there. Don't apply too much pressure. We don't want to hurt her toes. by bending them in the wrong way. You're trying to get away from me. Say, okay, all right, I'll put this down. Let's get you repositioned here. Let's tuck those wings, make you feel comfortable. Show you some attention there, girl. And then once she's happy in her little little arm there, just like a tucked football, we can go ahead and start impressing the foot. I tried the other side. Again, the feet are actually much softer than I originally had intended them to be, but I am able to get the general impression of some of the skin textures here. And I know we're zoomed out pretty far, but I also want to give you just a nice display of what it looks like overall. Reaching down to get another piece of clay here. And we'll continue the process.
I'm almost done. See, the under feet of the chicken feet are kind of just wrinkled, and that's kind of easy to do. The most important thing is that top part right there.
The old girl is starting to get a little bit antsy here. Give her a little pet there just to calm her down a bit. And we're almost done. We only got like one or two more, and then this whole process will be finished up here. And then we'll be able to move on back to the studio to showcase just how you can just quickly apply some of those general line textures to the clay, and then use some tools, just kind of finalize the details out or build them up as you see fit. I'm actually holding the clay on the shank of the leg there.
It's kind of stiffened up a little bit.
So letting that warm up in my hand
against the leg, and then see there.
And then as you can see there, you can see some of the textures there as I kind of try to zoom in there. But of course, now my Pops is holding the camera here. We're going to get a little bit zoomed in action.
This one has better platelets on it than the other foot, so that's the one we'll try to use. So we're going to try to capture mostly this on top and this platelet here, which is hard to sculpt. So we'll stretch that clay out nice and long like that. Oh, hold on, girl. Last one, girl. Last one. Put that foot down flat. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it. I'm just going to barely mush it, just gently. And as you apply your hand there, because it is cold out, it warms up the clay and it pushes it down. And then there's our textures.
All
it's kind
right.
of hard to do, and then come in here close. So this right here shows you the different textures. And then these will get soaked in rubbing alcohol, dipped in rubbing alcohol, and then they'll get baked. And then there's some of our textures which will kind of expedite the sculpting process.
So with the girls all settled back into their positions here and happy in their coop, we can jump back into the studio. Now here they are before the baking process. Now I had a little bit of a mishap here, and I actually burned a few of them. My bad. I forgot they were in the oven, so I only had a few that I was able to salvage, but they were actually holding their texture quite well here. We have a little bit of scaling on some of them, and then we have a lot of ripply texture on the other ones. And again, this is just kind of expedite the overall texture, and now we can get a little bit of uniformity between the two feet on the Peregrine Falcon. Obviously, the Peregrine Falcon's feet are slightly larger than a real chicken's, but overall, the overall texture is what we're looking for. We want to make sure we get that platelet-like texture along the legs coming down towards the feet. And we want to make sure we get a lot of texture or dried skin effect around the toes of the feet before we go into those nice, lovely, smooth talons here. We're going to start off by putting on a fresh layer of monster clay, super warmed up here, and then we're going to use these to kind of impression them into place. Again, I said that they were a little bit too large when we were out there working with the chickens, and they are. So if you can make yours slightly smaller, then I really recommend you do so. Originally, I had intended to make them extremely small. Like the tips of them were going to be the size of a pencil, maybe no more than a quarter-inch in width. That way, I could attach them to some wooden handles and shanks. But I just decided not to do that this time. We just made them really quick, just pushed them into place, and then we moved on. I may make some of those later on down the road. So I highly recommend you like and subscribe to the channel, because I will probably be revisiting making your own sculpting tools in the very near future for some of the other projects. I have a lot of bird projects planned out over the next year or two, so make sure you stay tuned. Some of them are mythical, some of them are magical, and then some of them are, of course, just your everyday animal here in our realm, as it were. So here we are. We're going to go ahead and detail the edges of the talons there and the toes, making sure to apply a little bit more texture there so they're not super smooth. You can't have super smooth feet. They need to have a lot of skin texture to them and a little bit of dryness, just because they're very tough feet, you know.
They're out there surviving all forms of the weather. We're going to go ahead and apply a little bit more around the shanks of the legs, and those will kind of be like a little bit of a rolled over plate-like texture, and then we'll bring those feathers down as well over the ankles there, and it just brings it all together. And just like that, guys, I hope you're entertained by my shenanigans out in the chicken coop with the little hen that we had captured. She was a great subject and she did absolutely fantastic, allowing us to calmly make molds of her feet. Now, some of those molds didn't turn out as I had intended, and some of the actual textures in those actual molds were a little bit thinner than I would like to see. They would have translated to the actual clay itself if I had really applied those to the sculpture, but some of those textures I had already sculpted into this item. But more so anything for this video, as I just wanted to showcase to you that you can use anything to make a mold to transfer into a clay. You can use an inanimate object or you can use a chicken. And in this situation, I just really want to showcase that, hey, you can do this. You don't have to do something as wild as what I did here, but you can do things similar to it. So whether you're taking like, impressions of leaves or bark or something in between, you can enjoy the process of your creation in your art journey. Now, the actual Peregrine Falcon has turned out absolutely fantastic so far, and we're at the last stages of completion. I've already finished out the feet with that overall rough texture that we want for that dried skin, and I actually hand sculpted a lot of that in this video. We did use a little bit of the impressions around the ankles and the legs, more so than anywhere else. And I'm going to hand put some of those little divots and dots in the under portion of the feet when I get done with that stage. That's one of the final stages before we get ready for the mold making process. The next portion of the Peregrine Falcon is actually going to be us working on the extension of the wing feathers. Those are those long, elegant feathers that really come off the back to match those tail feathers that you see here in this bee clip. I really do hope you guys had fun in this video. It's a little bit different than what I'm usually producing here in the studio as far as art content, but I'm trying to get out of the studio a little bit more and just showcase some of the things that I do to create some of the art here inside the studio. It's kind of a wonky video, but I think it was fun to put together and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next awesome video from Byerly Studios. Later.